I've been testing this GameSir G7 Pro controller for over a week now on plenty of different popular games, and let's just say I have a lot to say. And I'm also going to help you figure out if this $79 controller is even worth it, as well as you're going to know any pros and cons you might want to know before buying. All the content in this box is basically going to be the controller. We have our charging station. We have a long 3-meter charging cable or wired connection cable. We have a 2.4 gigahertz wireless USB dongle. We have our 2 D-pads right here that we can swap in for this one. And then we also have a little thank you card, a manual, a 1-month free trial of Xbox Game Pass, as well as a big GameSir sticker. Weight-wise, it's only coming in at about 272 grams, which is not too heavy, but also not too light. It's almost heavy enough where it feels more premium, but not heavy enough to the point where it feels like it's dragging you down. And before one of you mention it, because I know someone's thinking it, yes, I know I bite my nails, please do not leave a comment talking about how ugly and gross my nails are. So while the back of the controller is rubberized, and it will definitely help out if you say you're like me and you have sweaty hands, because think about it, most of your sweat is going to be right around your palm area. When you're holding the controller, it's going to be right there. And as for the front, it is also texturized, but it is not rubberized. So you can see this difference here, rubber, plastic. And they both feel nice, but it would have been nice to also have that rubber feel go across the front side into these front handles. So the controller has magnetic removable face plates. It has a 3-plate front, basically where you can remove this plate, this front handle, and this other front handle. Now if I wanted to just take it off, I just peel it from the top and it comes right off. I can also peel the other side off, just like that. And the other side, there we go. Just a little bit of prying with something. I just used that USB dongle. But you can see in here, this is what the entirety of the inside of the controller looks like. Now to break down some other features, and the first one we want to talk about is definitely these TMR joysticks. They have a 1000 hertz polling rate using a 12-bit ADC chip. Now for those of you who don't know TMR6, put simply, basically, these are not going to have stick drift compared to your stereotypical Xbox One controllers. And even putting the stick drift aside, I promise you, you're going to have much better precision with these sticks because they're going to be really responsive, really precisioned, and very good for those shooter games especially. It also has these extra mini bumpers on the top right near the triggers and bumpers, and no, it is not in the way when you're playing these games or pressing the bumpers. I really never feel like I accidentally press the buttons, but I also feel like they're not too far where I need to overly reach my fingers around to actually press these clicky mouse sounding buttons. The triggers use Hall effect sensors. Basically, that's a fancy way of saying they use magnets instead of rubbing metal parts, so they don't wear out as quickly and they stay smooth for years. And when I say smooth, this is near fully quiet. I can barely hear these triggers when I'm using them. They're very smooth. There are also trigger stops on the back. Basically, you flip the switch and it shortens the trigger pull for faster shooting games like Call of Duty, Apex Legends, any shooter where you really need to make sure that you're able to immediately press and shoot. There's going to be no downtime. Now in terms of connectivity, you can use this controller in 3 different ways. You can use it wired with USB-C, and you can do this on Xbox and PC, or you can do it wireless with the 2.4 gigahertz dongle, but this can only be used on PC. And if you wanted to use it with an Android device, all you would have to do is turn around this, set it to the Bluetooth option in the middle, and then you're going to be all set to use this with Bluetooth on Android. And when using wired, you just flip it to the middle, and when using the 2.4 gigahertz wireless dongle right here, you just switch it over to the right. Wired and 2.4 gigahertz both have a 1000 hertz polling rate, meaning it reports your inputs to the console or PC 1000 times per second, which is definitely faster than a standard controller and reduces input lag by a ton. So you can see my USB dongle is right over there and it is trying to connect to my controller. All you got to do, hold down that Xbox button, give it a second to let it connect, and now that it's done flashing, you can see that this is not flashing as well, so these are now paired and connected wirelessly. This controller has a built-in long-lasting battery. I was able to get in multiple long gaming sessions before needing my first recharge, and the dock is a really nice touch. All you do is you just drop the controller on it and it charges automatically, and it even has a slot to store the wireless dongle so you don't lose it. So it has a standard headphone jack at the bottom right here. You could just adjust game and chat volume directly from the controller. So if you're not in a game, you can easily press this up or down on the D-pad, and if you have a controller connected to this 3.5mm audio port, then your audio will go up or down if needed. Another cool thing is there's also a dedicated mute button with a red LED light so you know when your mic is off. Right now I don't have the controller connected, I'll do that later, but just know that this will glow red. So in terms of motor rumbles, there is 4 total. There's 2 down in the bottom, and there's also 2 up near the bumpers. As for customization, you get 4 extra buttons. You get 2 on the back that are very responsive. You can also turn off if you ever need to, just by pressing these in, and now these will not click anymore. But if you play shooters like me, you're usually going to want these to be on because I like to map these buttons to my faceplate buttons over here. And you also get swappable D-pads for different gaming styles, and the controller can be opened up for joystick maintenance if you ever need it. Slide it in and then place back the plate. Now, one thing I did notice is this is definitely not optimized in terms of how it looks. Now, when I say not optimized for how it looks, basically what I mean is look at this controller. There's clearly some gaps in between the plus signs. Another thing I did notice is that while these joysticks are removable and you could just pull them out a little bit, I have noticed they kind of feel like you need to give it a little bit of force, which can kind of scare some users into making sure that they're not breaking the controller. But you just give it a good pull, and both this little, I guess, part of the top stick of the joystick can come out, but as well as the actual joystick itself can also come right out. See, anyways, this is what I mean when I say that these joysticks aren't the easiest to take out, and sometimes you can really have to give it a little bit of force, but they come out nonetheless. And you could see these red TMR sticks that this controller is really based upon. But as for the overall pros, there's a lot, right? There's an excellent build quality, right? It feels very nice and responsive in my hand. There's the responsive controls with these precision TMR sticks, these micro switch buttons, and the bumpers feel great. It's got that high performance of that 1000 Hz polling rate on PC with low input delay when wired and wireless. The triggers are great, especially when using the trigger stop. They feel that mouse click style, and they're also praised for the responsiveness. And trust me, I can say I can easily back that claim. Now, in terms of customization, you can download the GameSir Nexus app on PC and Xbox, and yes, it is on Xbox too. You can swap out these D-pads easily, and that's not to mention you can open up these faceplates for easy cleaning. The weight is just about perfect. It's not too light where it feels cheap and hollow, but it's also not too heavy to the point where it feels like it's dragging you down when you're holding your controller. It's about 272 grams, and it is completely well balanced for extended play. Another pro is that this controller works great for not just shooter games, but also multiple genres. It works good for shooters, racing games, fighter games, so many much more, right? I cannot begin to tell you how important it is and how useful it is to have Hall effect triggers in a racing game such as Forza Horizon 5. This 1000 Hz polling rate is supported on PC via both wired and that wireless USB dongle, which makes input registration extremely fast, reducing lag and optimizing your performance for the most competitive gameplay. The micro switch trigger stops on the back would be more recommended for shooters usually, and that Hall effect analog triggers would be better geared for smooth, consistent control, for example, like playing a racing game. And another pro I want to highlight is honestly the value. This controller is $79.99, which compared to most Pro controllers is a great deal. And especially when it comes down to the fact that I prefer this controller more than those other more expensive controllers that are double or even triple the price. Now you're really starting to talk my language in terms of value to price to overall performance ratios. Now, as for some cons, this controller is only usable on Xbox when wired. So if you wanted to use it wireless, you're going to be stuck to PC. And another con, I guess if you wanted full customization, is that the back pad is not customizable. So, say if you threw on a hot pink front faceplate, but you wanted the back to match it, you wouldn't be able to do that, at least without opening up the backside and getting into the, the warranty stickers. And at that point, you're doing a little bit more than I would probably recommend. Some reviews also did mention that the D-pad feels too sharp, honestly. And I'm going to be, quite frank, I think that's preference, right? I actually really like the feedback, and I think this has felt really responsive when using it in games, and I've had no issue with it. So if you're one that uses your D-pad, you might want to look into this a little bit more before buying. But if you're like me and you bought this controller mainly for shooter games, now obviously I don't use the D-pad for too much with shooter games, and I've used it more for these TMR joysticks, those Hall effect triggers, and those trigger stops right there, right? And especially with these mappable buttons, shoot, I have this button mapped to my B. I have this back button mapped to X. I have this button mapped to Y, and I have this button mapped to A. Basically, if you've been wondering what this is at the top of the controller, it's to make sure that your cable, your USB-C cable, when using a wired connection, does not get all messed up when you're using a wired controller, right? Too many times there's been, I'm sure there's been a time where if you've used Xbox controllers in the past or just any wired controller, you've accidentally hit this on, say, a table, or say you slam it down on the ground because you got all mad or whatever it be, and that cable is bent and then has no longer been able to be used. This prevents that. You can now no longer bend the metal part, even if you tried, right? No matter what, obviously I'm not going to try and go to the fullest extent of how much it'll take for this to bend, but you get the point. This will now keep your metal USB-C cable fully safe when using. So we take it out. And the coolest part is when you don't even want to have it or use it, you can slide this forward, and then you could take it up, and it comes right out just like that. And now the controller's right back to being like that normal flat controller interface again. So in case you've been wondering, no, there is no driver software for this controller. It really can be plug and play if you want it to be. But I would just get the Nexus software, which is optional, by the way, technically. But if you're getting a Pro controller, why wouldn't you take advantage of the advanced controls in the software? And speaking of software, why don't we show you the GameSir Nexus app on PC? Now, in terms of downloading the software, at least on PC, I would highly recommend downloading it on the Microsoft Store. As you can see here, you just type in GameSir, you'll see GameSir Nexus, and then you go ahead and download it here. I already have it open, so we're going to pull it open right here. And now you can see we're already into the software. And when you're back on the home page, this is everything you can see. Now, one thing to make sure that you do almost immediately when downloading the software is the first thing, go to the report right here and change it from 500 or 250 to whatever it is to 1000. This will change the native trigger vibration, and it'll actually disable it just so it can make sure that we get the fastest input delay. You can see here from afar, you can see my vibrations, triggers, sticks, any kind of settings if I wanted to turn my controller off. Now here it's time for a close-up sound test. For $79, this is the sweet spot between budget and pro grade controllers. The link is down below if you do want to check it out, and if you really want to take up your game in shooters, take yourself up to the next level with these control freaks. I'll have both of the links in the description down below, and as always, thanks for watching.